What's up, guys? So we are back. We are ready to do the paint work on the fenders and the block of the motor. I'm going to walk you guys through here because I'm already pretty much ahead of everything that I was going to show you guys, but if you look at it, you can understand it. It's not that difficult. So here on the fenders, everything's been wiped down, ready to shoot. All I did was go through and mask off the graphics. The graphics pretty much look like this. So I just went through and just kind of figured out where each one stopped. Obviously I'm trying to keep my paint really minimal from going up there, but this is just for caution. You can almost back tape this, but I was like, by the time you do that, and you wipe it and tack it and make sure nothing's there, you might as well just do this and pretty much just extra insurance. Go ahead and just do it and be done with it. I'm still going to be mindful of where I put my sealer and my paint. I'm not going to go crazy and go all the way up here. It's all going to be shooting downward, so everything's going to go down and not up. So there should be less overspray than normal. This one's a little bit more trickier because you can see the primer line here. It is a little bit higher because there was some damage right here. So I had to go a little bit higher, but I think I can keep everything at an angle going down and get everything sealed off. It's a shadow black pearl base coat, so it's black with some pearl in it. So it's not that difficult to spray or match. So I'm not really worried about that part. It's just getting up into the graphics. You want to stay away from painting that. You want to try to minimize where your overspray is going. So the way you do that is you just kind of point your gun at an angle down and everything will just drop down instead of going up. Engine block, it's going to be everything. I've pretty much fine lined it and taped everything off the way I want it. So it's ready, bagged, taped, all that stuff. I've already pre-cleaned everything. I ended up taking the little galleys plugs out of here. They just popped right out, so just took those out because the orange paint on them it was just flaking off of it real bad, so I wanted to just take that extra precaution. That way everything's nice and sealed with paint. But yeah, everything is ready. I've got sealer in my gun. I'm gonna do this first. I'm gonna do the fenders, black, straight black, KD 3000. Just straight black sealer, 4-1-2 is the mixture. I'm gonna do the fenders first since they're pretty much black paint. And then the block's gonna go like a light gray because it's going to go like a greenish teal color. So the light gray is gonna work really, really good for coverage on that light green color. It's pretty fancy. I think it's a Volkswagen cover, custom Volkswagen color. So I'm gonna do the black sealer first, and then whatever I have left over in the black sealer, I'm gonna throw white in there, and it's gonna kind of help me make that gray tone of sealer for that block. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the sealer on, black sealer on first, and then for the fenders, and then the block's gonna get light gray sealer on there. So let's go ahead and get this done, get it tacked off and sprayed, and get our paint ready. The sealer is waiting to flash off. They say about 10-15 minutes. It's going to be really quick because how humid and hot it is in here today. I mean, it's pretty much ready almost, but you can see where I kind of just faded it out where it needs to go on these fenders. This one's a little bit higher, but I think with this color I can get it to come down and just fade out where I needed it to. So, and what's going to happen is usually when I have multiple colors, I'll do them both at the same time if I've got enough area. I'll just kind of space it out. But I always have something in the back of my head of how I'm going to get it done without getting overspray on one or the other, because this black and white attracts a lot. Like if it's a solid color and you're spraying like a metallic color, and next to it, just a little bit of ways away, it seems like the metallics always gravitate towards that panel. So I always have a plan in my head of how I'm going to do this before I go in there and spray, but So I'm gonna show you now. So I've got the black for the black fenders, the shadow black pearl. And I've got this green, this teal green. Yeah, I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like. It looks kind of cool. I got just enough to do this motor, but it's got a little bit of metallic and some pearl in there. So how I'm gonna do this, I'm obviously gonna shoot the black first, and then once when I'm waiting on that black to dry and flash, I'm gonna shoot the green right after that. And I'm always, what I'm gonna do is, I'm always gonna leave my last coat to the black, because black overspray is not gonna cover that green. You're not gonna notice it. But the green, if you get any green overspray on that black, you're definitely gonna notice it because it's so drastic, and black just attracts everything, and you can see everything in black. So that's always my thinking, is like, how am I gonna finish this? How am I gonna spray this when I'm doing multiple colors? I'm really good at that because I'm used to, in one shop I worked at, we would have like 8 different color bumpers for cars that were getting bumper onlys in one booth, and I had to really play that game of like, how I'm gonna spray this and not get overspray on the bumper next to me. So I got really good at doing that. Obviously in here, booth at home, I've got a ton of room, so what I'll just do is I'll spray the black, I'll kind of push it out of the way, spray the green. Obviously the fans are gonna be on, so it's not gonna take that much, but if you're having a car in here or something that's gonna take up room, this is the way that you pretty much want to do it. Is you always want to lead off on the color that you think is going to attract more of the metallics and everything like that. You want to kind of use that as your last coat. So I'll do the black first, go off and do the green, switch off back and forth. It's really hot in here, so this stuff's going to flash off really quickly. So I'm not worried about that. It's just going to be back and forth until it covers. Obviously I used the different sealer on this. I looked at the color again. It's actually like a medium to dark gray that it covers really well with. It wasn't a light gray version, so yeah, that's why it's a little bit darker than what you would pretty much think. But yeah, it's like a medium to dark gray. That's what it says on the can for this stuff to cover really well. I've sprayed the color multiple times already because I've done stuff for this customer in this color, and the paint that I have is what we use that was left over from the last job. So I wrote everything down. That's kind of how I know what value shade of sealer to use on this stuff. So yeah, you always want to keep track of all that stuff for a customer, and they bring stuff back, months and months apart from each other. You always want to write down everything you do for that particular customer, like what do you reduce the paint with, and what kind of value shade of sealer do you need to use to make sure everything matches really well. So I wrote all that stuff down. This is actually made up from a shop that actually worked on his car, I think years ago now. It's been a long time ago, so they figured this color out, so they already know how to mix this. So he just goes in there and buys the pre-mixed formula for me of whatever I need, and then yeah, that's why it's in this can right here. Or else I'd be using my own stuff. So this is what the customer supplied. I know it's going to match really well because like I said, I've already used it. So yeah, it's just going to take a lot of cover. The green, if I remember right, it does take a lot of coats for this stuff to cover, but that's just, that's some colors. Some colors are more transparent than others. So if you need to put down like a shade of color that's close to the color you're spraying, and that'll kind of help you get to that color a little bit quicker rather than putting 6, 7, 8 coats of color on one thing and wasting color, mixing up way too much color. You always want to play that game and figure it out before you go into it. So I think this stuff is pretty much tacked off, flashed out, ready for some color. So we're going to get in here, we're going to get these guns moving and grooving, and get some color on this stuff. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Color is on. Now it's just a waiting game to let this stuff flash off. Took about 4 coats, but it came out really awesome. So the trick to doing something like this that's got a lot of crevices and everything is you need to dial your fan pattern down quite a bit. And what I usually do is I go for those hard to reach places first, like inside of here, all this underneath, inside of here, all these areas that are really hard to get to, because if you just go through and just do a pass, just like you're painting an outside of the fender of a door or something like that, all these little spots are not going to get paint in them. So I go around and do all those first, and then I'll do like a couple passes like I'm painting a fender or a door and get the rest of it. But by the time I do that, try to get in all these little crevices and stuff like that, like inside of here. By the time I get all that covered, all the overspray has pretty much covered everything else. So when I go through and I do my normal passes to make sure everything's covered, all those areas are covered when I get to that stage. So that's just a little trick. I always do the hard to reach places first, but super happy with it. Came out really awesome. Like I said, it's just a waiting game to get this stuff to flash off and dry. That's the motor. Here's the fenders. They look like they're coming out awesome as well. You can see just a little bit of overspray got up there, which is fine. Most of that stuff should tack off once I get all that off. This one took a little bit harder of a hit because obviously the sealer line was a little bit higher than the other, but it came out really good. So now we're waiting on the base coat to flash fully so we can clear it, but on the fenders we got to take the tape off of it. So we're waiting on the color to dry. That way we take the tape off of it and the paper off of it. If it hits it, it's not going to ruin anything. So like I said, it's just a waiting game now, and then we'll take the paper and tape off of it and then go to clear and make sure everything's, I always double check in like a spotlight or a light on my phone just to double check everything before I clear it to make sure it's right, because the last thing you want to do is clear something and you're like, oh crap, you can see all this. So that's just the way I do it. So that's just a little trick too. You always want to double check everything before you clear coat it. So once I pull this tape off and all that stuff, I'll make sure the graphics are correct and all that. With that already being clear coated up there, you can almost take something to kind of wipe it off a little bit. You just got to be really careful. With this color, you might get away with it just because it's black with some pearl in it. It's not really a crazy color where you're going to see something that you might, Scotch Brite to get some overspray off of something. So there's little tips and tricks to get around stuff like that. But being this is just shadow black pearl, you can get away with a lot more. But you can kind of see how straight these fenders are. These things were rolled underneath up here in the front right here. So super happy with it. We're gonna probably put a total of 3 coats of clear on everything, even the block. And then it should be just waiting game again and let it dry overnight. Give it a couple days to dry and back in and block everything down and buff it all and bring it back. Obviously the motor, you're not going to buff the motor, so you got to be really careful with that just to make sure everything's wet enough, covered, and that you don't get any runs anywhere. So it's a little bit trickier to spray something like that with clear, but with it being as hot it is, the clear I have, UC21 from House of Color, it's a thicker clear, but I've got medium reducer and hardener with it, so it's gonna flash off pretty quickly because it is hot today. So it's like, feels like it's almost 100. But yeah, we're just gonna wait the game out and then mix some clear up, get everything, make sure everything's correct, and then we'll shoot some clear. It's that time. I've already took the tape off of it and went through and tacked everything, cleaned everything off that I thought was an error, but some of the stuff wasn't. It's just underneath the clear coat from the previous person that did this and cleared everything. So here's what it looks like, guys, before clear. Came out really, really nice. It doesn't even look like we did anything to it, so super happy with it. Like I said, everything's tacked off, ready to go. I'll probably tack it off one more time. And then we'll clear it right after that. Let's make sure all the debris and everything's off of it that might fly in here, bugs, things like that. I don't really get too many. Being out in the country, that's one thing I fight a lot, especially when I have the main door open, the overhead door open, is there's a lot of flies, there's a lot of bugs because there's nothing but cornfields all the way around. What I'm talking about. there's nothing but cornfields around me, and corn's starting to grow. That's when the mice come out because they go in the cornfields and all the rodents and bugs and everything. But luckily, if I keep it just shut off and just pretty much off completely, that hook came down on that up there, so I got to fix that. And I just keep this fan running while the clear is drying or whatever I'm doing is drying. There's absolutely nothing that gets in here, which is surprising. Like I said, that's the one thing. If you're out in the country and you're doing this, compared to if you're in town and you have a shop that's kind of like in the city, it's night and day difference. There's a lot more you got to fight: wind, animals, bugs. The humidity is a little bit hotter out here. It's just, there's a lot more that goes with it. So you just got to take those extra steps and be careful. And then just, just make sure everything's right. But we're going to mix some clear up here. Like I said, they're going to get 3 coats. I'm going to look at it. If it needs a 4th, I'll put a 4th on it. I'll probably put a 4th on the fenders because 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to wet sand and buff the entire fender just to get them slick like they were before. So I'm going to be at least shaving off 1 coat when I'm doing that, essentially. So that way it's got 3 nice coats on it after I'm done. So I might just do a 4th, but we'll wait until we get there and see what it looks like. So the motor's ready to be cleared, so let's go make some clear up and get on the ball with this stuff, because usually 4 coats of clear, you're waiting almost 8 to 10 minutes between each coat. You can add that up, 32 minutes, half hour of just clear coat time, so it adds up pretty quick. So we're going to get to mixing some clear. This is what I use. It's the House of Color UC21. The 2-to-1 mixture, 2 parts clear, 1 part hardener. It's pretty simple, guys. It's nothing too crazy. This stuff lays out like glass. That's how I get everything that I have, or whatever I do lays out like glass, because this stuff, it's crazy what's in it. I mean, it's not like anything else I've ever shot. Yeah, it's more expensive than other stuff, but to me, I'd rather pay for something that's good rather than use something that's not as good for cheaper, and that way I know the customers are getting the best of the best. So that's what I use. So we're going to mix this stuff up, 2-to-1 in here. I'm probably going to mix up probably a good 10 ounces, maybe 11, to get all this cleared. I might mix up just 13 ounces. 13 ounces can fit in these, so might just make up 13 ounces and get it over with, and put 4 coats of clear on everything. So I'm going to get that done. We'll be back and get some clear on this thing right behind me. Is crazy. I mean, especially in this shop that I'm at, the size of the paint booth. My booth is like, I don't know, I would say it's like 2 regular paint booths together. I believe it's a lot longer for sure, but I think it's 10 feet wider than a normal booth, and then like an extra 12 feet and long than a normal booth. So it's a big area. But that exhaust fan I bought months ago during the winter time, and it's just, it'll pull the curtains in. Like if you try to go outside and use a side door, it'll pull that door. Like it's sucking a lot. And I mean, I've only painted a few things in here with that. I mean, I don't even think I had the truck in here when I had that, but it's just, man, it's awesome. Like, it's just doing these fenders. I mean, there's like hardly any dirt or anything in them, so it's saving me a lot of time. But I'm still going to wet sand and buff the entire thing. But I'm going to show you guys. I just got done putting my last 4th coat of clear on. It's been about 8 or so minutes since the last time I cleared it, so you can really see these things and just what they look like, because it's pretty much going to look like this. It's just going to be dry, so it might flow out a little bit more, but this is pretty much what it's. So I mean, you can't get any better than that. Like, I think I've counted maybe 5 dirt nibs total between both fenders. But you can really see that pearl in there. And that black. Oh, there's a dirt nib right there. And it's just going to save me a ton of time wet sanding and buffing, because I mean in here I usually wet sand and buff everything anyways, but just because of and that I wet sand and buff everything, it doesn't mean that I have to because it's so full of dirt. Yes, I get dirt and stuff, everybody does, every painter does, so don't think dirt's going to ruin your paint job. Now if it's like a bug or something underneath that's causing a dirt nib, yeah, that's an issue. Or any type of dirt that's not actually dirt and you can see it. Obviously you want to try to pick that stuff out and kind of add in clear if you need to. But as far as just dirt particles from the air that you can wet sand and buff out, people cry about it all the time, but it doesn't matter. But the type of work I want to push out of this shop, I wet sand and buff everything. That's why I say that. It's not because it has to be buffed because it looks so bad. No, it's because I want everything to be slick and smooth, and I want everything to look almost perfect when it comes out, because that's the type of work that I want to do out of here. So that's what I mean when I say that. Like I want everything to look really, really good. So with minimalizing the dirt, I mean, if I didn't have dirt, I would just hit it with 2,000. I'm going to hit it with 2,000 anyways, but I wouldn't have to worry about going so far down to get the dirt out of it. I just buzz over it, and 3,000 it and wet sand and buff it, So yeah, I'm really super happy with it. It came out really, really good. It looks super awesome too. You can see with that light, I got the light on here, but it just came out killer. So the engine has 3 coats of clear on it, and the fenders have 4. And honestly, I don't really count the first coat of clear. I mean, I did in this case. This case I did count it. So I have 4 on the fenders and 3 on the motor. But like my first coat of clear, especially if I'm doing like artwork or anything like that, I pretty much just tack the clear on to where it's like semi glossy and it's kind of rough in certain areas, especially where you added color or whatever. So it's just kind of like a tack coat. And after that, I just hammer it. Obviously, you don't want to run it, so you got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. But other than that, that's pretty much it, guys. Like I gotta wait. Everything, turned the fan off just a minute ago. Everything is kind of out of this room. So what I'll do is I'll keep the curtains up. The curtains will stay up, and then I'll let that stuff sit. It'll be dry. If it doesn't rain and get humid out, it'll probably be dry in like 4 hours. But obviously, if you're going to wet sand and buff it, wait a total of like 12 hours. If you got a bake booth, that's obviously different. You just go by the tech sheet. If you're going to bake it, find out how hot you want to get it and how long it needs to sit. But other than that, yeah, and here in this shop, in this booth that I have, I wait a full 12 hours at least with 3 coats. So if I got 4 on it, I might wait another few hours. But tomorrow I'm not going to be working out here at all, so I'm not really counting on that 12 hours. It's going to be more like 48 or 72 hours because I've got stuff to do this weekend. It's Friday night, so I just wanted to get this stuff done and let it sit for the weekend. And maybe I'll get to it Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday's 4th of July, so I don't know what our plans are. So it might be sitting longer than that. Heck, it might just sit until we get back from vacation next week. Next Friday we leave for Florida, so I'm probably just going to let it sit for that whole 2 weeks until we get back, and then it'll be nice and hard. I won't have to worry about anything, and I mean that's that. So that job is completed as far as I can get to. Obviously, you got to sand and buff it, like I said, but it's done. Nothing more for this customer. Everything is completed by what I was supposed to do. The only thing I didn't do was these valve covers. He wanted these clear coated, but it's got some type of a texture in it. So I was told I can't scuff them, I can't clear them. If I scuff them, it's going to take this black down. So I was told you can't do that. You can't just clear over it. You gotta be able to scuff it. So I would have to scuff it, paint it black, and then he would lose all of his Holley stuff. So I can't do those. That was the only thing I wasn't able to do for this customer. You know, sometimes you have that. Customers have these ideas in their head and they run them by you. You know, he was like, hey, if you can do it, do it. If you can't, you find out you can't do it without taking the black off, and I don't want the lettering off, don't do it. It's fine. So just some things work out like that. So you just got to kind of ask the right people and do the right things, because you don't want to, like on that, the engine obviously is going to get super hot. So if I would clear it, it might last until that engine got super hot, and then probably will start flaking. So you just got to be wary about doing some stuff. So unfortunately I was able to get to that, but everything else is done with him. So that's it. I mean, that's all I have to do. So I'm going to shut the shop down. Appreciate you guys watching. And next video is going to be a big one, I think. I don't know if I'm going to do anything between now and by the time we go to Florida. I might think of something that's going to be a video, but I have a old Dodge van that's coming here for artwork. It's been in a body shop getting body work and paint work done for the last 2 years. So it is coming to me. It's going to be a Grateful Dead theme. We're going to put a big old mural on one side of it, and it's going to wrap around to the other side. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be a lot of work. Right now, I am semi kind of roughing in the drawing for it. It's going to take me a while to do that, but the design process is what's going to take me the longest on that. But once I get the design done and get the van here, we can start rock and roll on that. And I plan on making videos of that, because I think it's going to be really cool what he wants. It's something you don't see. If you're a Grateful Dead fan, you know their artwork is crazy. It's got a lot of detail in it. It's got a lot of little nicks and, you know, Easter eggs in it from their career and everything. So, and they're really vibrant colors. So it's going to be really, really cool. So stay tuned for that video, because I will probably make multiple videos just on that project. So if you like airbrushing, that's all we're going to do to it. It's just going to be the design part of it and the airbrushing. So we're not going to be clearing it. We're not going to be doing any paint work to it. We're just going to be prepping it, airbrushing it, and giving it back to the customer. And he's going to take it to the guy. It's going to get finished, cleared by them. But I'm trying to talk him into letting me clear it, just because I know how to treat artwork and stuff like that, and I don't want anything to go bad with somebody else clearing it, because most people don't understand. You can't just pound clear on it, because it'll start running the color and everything on artwork. So you gotta be really careful. But yeah, that's probably going to be the next video. So stay tuned, guys. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff coming within the next month or so. So appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time.